honestly, like, I don't really know if you can get more feminine and Venus than something like Barbie, which is something most little girls play with as children. What's up, y'all, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Destiny Janae, aka your favorite astrology weather woman, or astrologer as some people call us. The Barbie movie is literally the most Venus retrograde thing that I've seen in a very long time. And hold on. The thing is that everything has a birth chart, and that birth chart happens when it is released, like, officially. So for albums that drop, like, I literally look at like the second they're released. When it comes to movies, I like to look at when they're released for the overall public. But regardless, I'm pretty sure all of the premieres happen during the shadow period of Venus retrograde, which is basically like the preview to Venus retrograde. And you were a thing. You took up physical space without having a birth chart, while your mom was pregnant for you, and your actual birth chart is just as soon as you came out into the world. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this Barbie situation. But Venus retrograde is all about redefining pleasure. Venus is all about what you love, it's about what you care about, it's about money, it's about beauty, aesthetics. And the Barbie movie was just very surprising. And I don't really like the stigma that retrogrades have of being this like horrible, nasty situation type of thing. Retrogrades are a lot more of like exploring the past and kind of adding a new definition to what the past was, and kind of taking what worked from the past and reworking it into a new way. Also, Venus retrogrades often really shift, romantic dynamics. A lot of times, romantic situations will come to an end during Venus retrogrades. People will change their appearance. And since this is in the sign of Leo, it's literally like the sign of fame, beauty standards, or just attention. And one thing I've noticed like with retrogrades lately is that retrogrades have the tendency to like tap into the opposite sign that they're in. So for example, like this Leo Venus retrograde is tapping into its Aquarius side, and like Aquarius is all about equality, it's all about like diversity and like allowing everyone to have representation. Like, it's for the collective, and like Leo is for the person. It's like Leo energy is kind of like the spotlight on one person, but Aquarius energy is like the spotlight on everyone. And I kind of think that's what this Barbie movie was doing, not only with its like diverse cast, but also with the plot. Literally what it was doing for our real world, but also what was happening in the movie. Because in the movie, there are Barbies of all different shapes, sizes, colors. Like, a Barbie can be anyone. And so then we have Barbie having these very like Venus retrograde types of questions about herself, which is like, what makes me pretty? What is my point? What am I supposed to care about? Like, who am I? And so it's kind of like Barbie reevaluating her value. Like, I think the movie in its entirety is like a restructure to how she values herself, her relationship with kin, and also her place in the world. Not to mention the direct challenge to like previous social norms that is just so apparent throughout this movie, which in my opinion is like quite feminist. Like, it's in Barbie land, the same way that Barbies view Kens as kind of like these accessories that like kind of just exist to serve Barbies. It's kind of like a parallel, and it's why all the Kens decide to rise up against Barbie. It's parallel to our real world, with the patriarchy and how men kind of view women as accessories that only exist to pleasure them and be useful to them in some way, shape, or form, whether that's emotionally, physically, spiritually, sexually, visually, or with their status, whatever the case. And so I think the movie makes a very broad statement. And something I've noticed from watching Chris Brennan, who does the astrology podcast, one of his videos, he talks about how in previous Venus retrogrades there were a lot of advances that we would have in the LGBTQ plus community. And Venus rules love. Love is not exclusive to one sexuality. And I think whenever Venus goes retrograde, she's kind of redefining what love is. She's redefining what beauty standards are. The 2008 Venus retrograde, and by the way, Venus retrogrades, they repeat themselves every 8 years in roughly the same area of everybody's birth chart. So like Venus retrogrades, not only do they play a part of like people in their individual lives, but they also play a part in like society. And so we're mostly just talking about like the societal part of Venus retrograde. Back to what I was saying, in 2008, gay people were getting a lot more representation in the media, in magazines, they were on the cover of things. And then 8 years later, that very next Venus retrograde, gay marriage was legalized. And also, whenever things occur in the fixed signs, they tend to last a very long time. So whenever we have these Venus retrogrades in Leo in particular, you know, this is a fixed sign. This is Venus changing something about the nature of love, the way that we value women as well, because Venus does represent like women or the feminine, or like feminine identifying individuals. So it's like changing the social norms. Venus also deals with like social norms and like even social constructs to an extent, like kind of like things that we all agree on socially as a collective. And every time Venus comes around and redoes that, it's kind of like challenging the norm. And so I think every time these Venus retrogrades in Leo happen, it's changing the very DNA, the genetic makeup of something on these Venus topics, and it is gonna last for a really long time. Like, Venus retrograde often invites us to take a look into the past and make that information or thing new again. The really cool thing that I think the Barbie movie 2023 did and is doing is taking what a lot of women, like the tween in the movie, consider Barbie to be, which is like a sexist, frivolous symbol of like outdated beauty standards, and made it fresh and new. It's like a whole new identity to like not just Barbie in the movie, but like Barbie the brand. Honestly, like, I don't really know if you can get more feminine and Venus than something like Barbie, which is something that like most little girls play with as children. I'm really interested in seeing like where the brand Barbie is gonna go from this movie, and like how the conversation that we're having about patriarchy and feminism and equality overall, that I'm really interested to see like how this is going to snowball into something else. And honestly, I feel like the Leo Aquarius axis in itself is all about self-expression, where usually Leo is like the self-expression of the self, like one person, and Aquarius is a lot more of the self-expression of everyone, where like everyone gets a voice. So I don't know, it was a very pleasant experience to just see something so revolutionary on screen. And maybe I just think it's revolutionary because I'm 23 now, and I was like around during a certain presidency that made America feel like we were shifted back in culture like 50 years. So to see a movie that has had so much money put into the production and the marketing and the creation of it have such a strong and clear message was heartwarming, and it kind of feels like we're finally moving on the right track. This is also not the type of movie that you just watch Barbie think about all these things. Like, these are deep topics that like everyone leaving the theater is also going to be exploring, and I think this is like the perfect way to start off a Venus retrograde. And I think with its initial release being in the shadow period, like literally a few days before Venus actually stations retrograde, like I think the impact of this movie is going to withstand for a very long time. Also because it's in a fixed sign, which is Leo. I just really needed to get my thoughts on a Barbie movie out of my head, put them somewhere, especially because I've been watching so much Venus retrograde content and like really just researching my own chronology and how Venus retrograde has influenced me, but also looking at like, you know, these academic sources like the astrology podcast on how other people perceive them. But yeah, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I love y'all so much, and bye.